Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Enough to Keep Going podcast. This is episode number 444. That's right, palindrome episode for Sunday, August 9th, 2026. I'm your host, Talmaster99. And with me tonight, I unfortunately only have one co-host tonight, as Mr. Game Logic. Game, how are you doing?
Good man. Good man. Been playing a lot of games.
Nice. I'm glad somebody is. Because I haven't really played too much this past weekend other than almost the same stuff as last weekend. But we'll talk about that a little later. First up, we will speak about segment one, our main GX stories. And you have two here. One you talked about last week, and I think the other one maybe a few weeks ago. So a couple of games you've been playing last few weeks or so.
No, I haven't talked about Assassin's Creed Black Flag yet because I hadn't played it until this week. So I've been doing a weird little do-si-do with Call of Duty, and I've been running hot and cold. I think I've finally figured some things out to make that a acceptable part of my life, but we won't talk about that yet. Maybe in the last segment. But while I was going through that malaise, I kind of wanted to go back to playing some of the Zeitgeist games and the new releases and stuff, which I said I was going to kind of get away from, but I kind of got the bug. So I did go and grab Assassin's Creed Black Flag Resynced because I'm an Ubisoft stan. So, and I'm really so glad I did. And, and I've always enjoyed Black Flag, but I've never been like one of these people who's like, Black Flag is like the greatest Assassin's Creed game out of the crop. Like it's like the bee's knees, blah, blah, blah. But one thing I will say is like, this game is one of the most gorgeous games that I've put my hands on this year. In terms of a remake, like they blew it out of the park, as far as the graphical upgrade, glow up that they did with the game. It looks, better than a lot of modern generation games that I've played this year. It just looks great. I mean, and it's really kind of impressive what, I always often talk about Snowdrop and how impressed I am by that engine, but the Anvil engine is doing some pretty equally amazing stuff as well. Now I'm playing it on an RTX 4070 on an ultra wide screen OLED. I have everything cranked up and the game is running an average of 65 frames per second with some dips. And I have ray tracing turned on. And so it has some dips below 60, which normally I would deem unacceptable. And, I would tweak the settings, to eliminate the dips. But I know that eventually I'll be playing this game on my RTX 4080 or 5080 system. So it's good enough. Right. And and one of the reasons, like this is arguably maybe the first time, but this is definitely one of the rare times that I've been so impressed with the visual quality and the graphical fidelity that I've decided that like the dips below 60 here and there are acceptable, which, normally I don't. But the game looks gorgeous. I mean, going up to an eagle perch, and, getting the big pullback right in the rotating camera to give you the global visual of the entirety of the map of the biodome that you're in at the time. It's like incredible. And, I'm in Havana now at the beginning of the game. And so, it's done that a couple of times and you see the city and the town. And then, but you also see as the camera rotates and pans, you can see like the harbor and the ships in the harbor. So it's just a really gorgeous looking game. I've only dabbled in Black Flag before, never really like fully engaged with the story. So this is an excellent opportunity to kind of jump in. And again, I'm a person who's a larger fan of the open world Assassin's Creed games. Not so much, the linear ones. And this was kind of the bridge one, right? The one that kind of carried us from the previous kind of linear design games to a game that was kind of very much akin to the open world and was definitely like an indicator of where it was going. Really Nate is in the chat, says Black Flag was awesome. Got the platinum a while back. Nice. Thanks so much, Nate. But yeah, I'm having a really good time. I enjoy the combat. Like I said, the graphical fidelity is great. I like the cast of characters that it is exposing you to. There are ones that, I'm paying enough attention to the story that I particularly like or dislike. Like right now I like Steed Bonnet, who eventually, goes on to become a sorry, I get cables wrapped around here, a more rascable character. It's also kind of super interesting and timely. Obviously, I've mentioned on this channel before, I was a history major in undergrad, but of particular note, I recently listened to a podcast about like the age of piracy. It's kind of always been, kind of one of my big interest areas. I have spent a lot of time sailing the Caribbean. So, visiting a lot of those ports. So, it's something that hits kind of very close to home, right, in terms of kind of nostalgia, which is kind of interesting, now that we're, currently going through the Halo campaign Evolve thing. And I'm like, well, that's a nostalgia that is not particularly hitting me, but this one is. So yeah, I'm having a really good time with it.
Nice. Yeah, you actually answered my one question I had, is whether you had played it before. When you played it before, was it like when originally it came out, or had it been like years afterwards?
Yeah, it was years afterwards. I eventually, grabbed it in one of those, frequent periods of time where I go through and kind of scoop up like every Ubisoft game that I'm missing, when it's on a deep sale or a deep discount. And so that's what I did during that time period. So like I said, I've played it a little bit before, but haven't really, delved as far into it. So it's sitting kind of squatting in a good place kind of in the calendar for me to kind of really pay attention to it.
I know one of the kind of the big things, obviously, with this one is the ship combat. Have you gotten to that part yet, or done any of it?
Yeah, it opens with that, and that's also kind of one of the. I think one of the reasons that I'm not as enamored of the game as other people are. The ship combat is like incredibly basic, and I mean, and I'm speaking from a person who has spent time right in their career actually studying naval combat and taking a lot of academic courses right on the topic. So and then playing slightly souped up things like World of Warships, but then playing significantly more complex things like back in the 90s, right, with the microprose games like Harpoon, and then eventually the James fighting simulators, Fleet Command. So like playing this, and then this game doesn't play much more sophisticated or more complex in terms of the naval combat than Sid Meier's Pirates, right? So. And actually, arguably, I would almost argue that Sid Meier's Pirates is actually more tactically complex, right? Because it invokes elements of kind of where you are in terms of the wind, whereas this game doesn't really penalize you, right, for being upwind or downwind, right, from your opponent, and then Pirates invokes like different types of ammunition and where you aim on the hull, because you can arm chain shot so that you can focus on taking down the sails, versus different types of things that where you want to aim like above the waterline or just slightly below the waterline. So it's neat. It's a neat little kind of twin stick naval combat kind of thing invoked in the game, but I think a lot of people maybe who aren't as familiar with the topical area really go gaga over the naval combat, and I'm like, it's neat. It definitely makes it approachable and accessible, but like it's not something that I'm like super floored by.
Yeah, as part of that too. Now, obviously, maybe you're the exception because obviously you have this other experience, with stuff. But in general, like back then, was that maybe it was just kind of the new thing? Like we hadn't really seen that maybe. Like I've never played Black Flag, so I didn't know what all the hubbub was about with the naval or the ship combat. So I didn't know if maybe that was kind of part of it too, just kind of the times basically of when it came out.
I think it's very much, and I mean that's a really good point. I think in retrospective, I mean it was very much kind of a Starfield of the thing, right? You know, in the terms of the way that Starfield kind of enables, starship combat, which is when it's modeled in a sim is significantly more complex, right? But Starfield does a thing of making it like super accessible and kind of watered down and something that is manageable on a gamepad. And so I think there was kind of that same effect, right, in this time period. Is that you're right? Like there hadn't really been like naval combat in the Age of Sail that had really been made like accessible on a game controller. And so yeah, this was the thing that kind of brought it to the fore. And so it's not simply the game controller enablement that I find unimpressive, but you could fast forward that and you could say that I'm not so certain that like that part of it lands with aplomb right now in 2026. So I'm not sure how much people are taking to that right now, because it's not necessarily that that's now that's old hat or that's been done before, but I don't know. I think it was a thing that was a flash in the pan, that was lightning in a bottle that kind of lit the fire at that time. But I don't think, I mean, that didn't kick off a trend. Like I haven't seen like a ton of like naval combat in the Age of Sail games enabled on a gamepad, as a thing. So it was very much a thing of the time and very much a thing unique to the series. And maybe that particularly fans of the Assassin's Creed series, fell in love with, but I don't know that it carried much further than that. Real Nate mentions in the chat that he also has family from the U.S. and British Virgin Islands, so he knows a lot of those areas that have been down there. Yep.
Yeah, the only game I can really think of was Sea of Thieves, which came out like years later after that. So, and that was. Have you ever played Sea of Thieves? I don't remember. I can't remember if you ever tried it.
I've played it like a couple times, with friends who were really enamored with it, but again, it was something that like didn't particularly light my fire either.
Yeah. I got a weird Assassin's Creed hole there. Like after two, I beat the first two, so 1 and 2, and then I played a little bit of Brotherhood, and then I pretty much went dark after that until Origins, was like 5 or 6. I think Rogue was in there, which was kind of like an offshoot, like a side story, I believe, as far as like story wise game. So yeah, I never played Black Flag, didn't play 3, Unity, Syndicate, and so it was, I don't know, I have that weird hole in there. And I never played Valhalla. I got another little bit of a hole in my Assassin's Creed my games, but I always enjoyed them. I had another question too. That's why I was kind of talking about the games here. Now I forgot what it was. Can't remember now, but I'll ask later if I can remember. So yeah, that's Assassin's Creed Black Flag Resynced. So you have one. Oh, I don't remember what it was now. You playing on PC? Are you playing with keyboard and mouse, or are you playing on controller?
I am playing with controller.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I usually do too with most third-person games. I'll play with controller. So I don't know, it's just some kind of weird thing. All right. So you have a second game here that you actually mentioned from last week. You're continuing to play.
So yeah, I talked about Mixtape a little bit last week and rolled credits on it this weekend, and that was also a good time. I talked about it, with some friends in Discords and stuff like it. There's nits I have with the game, which I haven't spoken very very loudly about on social media. It's not really my intention or desire to kind of drag the game through the mud. My largest problem with the game is not even necessarily with the game, but with the way the media and other people have overreacted to it, in my opinion, and kind of put it up on this pedestal, which I think is not really appropriate. The first thing I will say is, I am playing this game on PC. You put your game on PC, and that therefore carries with it high expectations. I was playing this game on a 32-inch OLED on another RTX 4070 with a Ryzen 5950X CPU and 32 gigabytes of RAM. I put it in, I think, I can't remember if it has upscaling or not. But I basically, cranked everything up. Again, this is a pretty simplistic game, right? Shouldn't be that demanding. I cranked everything up and put the game in run, and it was doing fine. And then it got to another like skateboard downhill scene, and it dropped to 15 frames per second. And I was like, hold on a second, what is going on? Like, is this a glitch? Like, what's going? And I sat there, and because in the skateboard scenes, it plays until you like hit something, and then it kind of rewinds back and then plays again. So I just left it kind of in a loop while I was playing with the settings, and like cranking down on settings, like nothing was working. And I'm like, this is A, ridiculous, and B, it's unacceptable, not in terms of the game. I will give the game a pass for being like a visual novel and being a game, right, that was kind of this indie thing that was a step aside from the norm. Fine. But when people overhype the game and talk about the game as a 10, I'm like, you cannot, like, look, I've said this since Star Wars Jedi Survivor. We are not talking about a game being a 10 or a game being in the discussion for Game of the Year when it comes out on PC and it's not performant. Like, that's a choice that you make to put it on PC. But once it's on PC, me personally, I hold you accountable, right, for being performant. Where I had to put the thing in terms of settings was I had to drop to 1440p. And this is the thing that really carried me over the edge, right? I enabled the one setting that I despise. Like, at my core, as a religious matter, it is something that I never use. And I enabled differential resolution. And what that does is that is the setting on PC where it floats the resolution to maintain the frame rate, and it also yeah. So I hate it. I'm like, no, like, I want it, if I want it at 4K, like, I want it at 4K, and then, like, if you've got to dip the frame rate, that's fine, but I want it at 4K. Like, I don't want you automating this varying, like, resolution at all when I'm on PC. So that's what I'm having to do. And I think it dropped it to like 75%, like, of like the max resolution or whatever, or of the whatever resolution I had selected. So I was not pleased with that at all. But that's what I had to do to get the game to run at 60 frames per second. So, because even just dropping it to 1440p didn't enable it to run at a consistent 60 frames per second. So that's the one primary reason I would not be supportive, and I would have hard pushback to a discussion for this game being in the discussion for Game of the Year. The second thing I would have is, and we talked about this a little bit last week, but the game is just not culturally relevant as like a crossover. And when I say that, again, lots of people have gone gaga talking about the music track, and I'm like, this could have been a music track that had a huge number of crossover hits, right, between multiple cultures. Like, multiple cultures in the 80s and 90s knew Whitney Houston. Multiple cultures knew Michael Jackson, right? So the game is like 28-ish chapters, I think. And each chapter is like a song, right? Of those 28 chapters, I recognized one song in the set of 28. And that was Stan Bush's The Touch from the Transformers the movie soundtrack. Right? And that's still not, I don't consider that a cultural crossover hit. Like, I don't think a lot of black kids did what I did and like bought the soundtrack, right, and have that in their current music library. But they would be aware of it because Transformers the movie was kind of a multicultural crossover like thing that a lot of people watch, right, from the cartoon. Like, literally, that's the one song that I recognize from all the songs that she rattles off on the soundtrack. And then it's kind of interesting, near the end of the game, they play Stan Bush's Dare, which is another song from the Transformers soundtrack. There's one song that she mentions, Montel Williams, not Montel Williams. I can't remember Montel's last name, but it's just the song, This Is How We Do It. And she's going to play it, right? But that song actually doesn't appear right in the game. So I'm like, so it's like one song that's officially part of the soundtrack, one other song that they play a little soundbite of, and then another one that they give a head nod to, but isn't actually incorporated. And I'm like,
it's weird.
This, and I hate to put it in these terms, but I really don't know another way to put it. So I'm just going to put it in the terms, which is very similar to the terms that I put it last week. Well, I do know a slightly better way to say it, but I'm going to start with the more obtuse way of labeling it. This is a white kid's memory game. And I hate to put it that way, but I need to put it that way, right, to have the conversation. This is a game entirely reflective of a subculture that only white America participated in the 90s, right? And again, I say that because it didn't need to be, because you could have had other songs, right, mixed in the soundtrack that were what we used to call crossover hits, right, that hit multiple cultures. And as we move forward in time, crossover hits didn't become just a matter of black artists who sang a song that white people knew. It also started to include things like Asian artists and Latino artists, right? Again, these songs, and it would also include, as we started to hear more white artists that had more soulful intonation, like a Taylor Dane or something like that, that multiple cultures recognize. But this game is so culturally stovepiped, right, in what it reflects, that it is just not to me, it is not the multicultural event, of a story that people either claim that it is or very discreetly, subvertly, and covertly don't talk about, right? And that's, again, where I have a problem with how the media is treating this, and some of the content creators, influencers are treating the game. Now, I will say where I could make a less, sensationalist, slanderous comment about it is very much a game about a subculture in suburban America that not a lot of people participated in, right? That, like, this very isolated culture of relatively affluent, upper middle class, West Coast America kind of participated in. And again, it is just not broadly appealing. Like, we understand it from the dynamics of, like, the things that the kids go through. And like, as the game is ending, I got very, like, emotional about, like, thinking about, like, the friends in high school that I said goodbye to, right, for the last time, that quite frankly, like, I didn't really put a lot of value on, right? I was so obsessed and so concerned with just getting out of town and getting on with my life that I just didn't really recognize, right, that some of these people were people I was going to be saying goodbye to, like, for the last time. And feelings of, like, no, I actually wish I'd had those relationships, like, are displayed in the game, of, like, people that it actually mattered that you said goodbye to. So, I mean, the game ends on a very emotional high note, despite the non-relatability, like, that I feel that the game carries with it, as it's banner waving, ethos. But, so in that context, it is a good game. It's a solid game. It's a game that is very timely and important on the gaming landscape right now, right? It is a game that says something and does something from a design perspective. And like I said, there's other elements of, like, a very key, hyper key design choices in terms of the game mechanics itself, right? The thing that I talked about last week about how, like, you go into the skateboard scene and it doesn't even bring up, like, controller prompts on the screen. It just lets you, right? Because that would be disruptive, right? That would take you out of the mood. And then there are other things, that happen throughout the game, and the game at the end of the day, the game is a series of mini games, right? that are just meant to derive this kind of like emotional immersion, right? And I think pieces of that are good, and pieces of it are good in terms of you see character reactions that you don't expect, and so that again gives you like an emotional, I don't want to say connection, but that it makes you feel something, right, as you're going through it, and that's appreciated. So DBQ, I think, said it best, right? He said, it's a really good John Hughes movie, and as I'm playing the game, I'm like, I've toyed with the idea of like trying to cast each of the characters, but then I've stayed away from that because I don't want to do that. I don't want to ground it in that reality because that might ruin the vibe for me. But I will say, as I'm playing through the game, I feel like this is a movie John Cusack would be in, So, DBQ is very spot on about that. But I pull back from this notion of, this being, one of the best games of the year, or a game to be discussed in the game of the year conversation. I feel it's important. I feel like, it should be held in high regard. I think it should be a game that should be discussed. But I don't know that it has like all the, baggage and window dressings and things that people are trying to heap on it.
I was just watching some video of it, and I don't remember if you mentioned this last week, but the animation, like during it looks like from the videos I was watching, is it kind of like that? I don't know what that style is, but it's kind of like South of Midnight.
I would say like Into the Spider-Verse type of, stop and go kind of hitchy animation.
Yeah, kind of herky jerky.
Yeah. And I mean, it doesn't, and that's not detracting like from the game. It's a style that fits the game well, for the story it's trying to tell.
And I'm assuming there's not a lot of, maybe other than like the skateboard section, there's probably like not a lot of action, like them like running around and stuff like that. Other than, like I said, other than skateboard sections, there
are some. It kind of goes back and forth between, I would say, like the three types of scenes, right? It goes, and I think, and I meant to mention this last week and maybe I didn't. One of the things that I feel like the game does super well, the game does kind of stand out in a year when we also had, I can't remember what is the game that came out from, it's another, I played it.
Those are like visual novel type of game, or?
Yeah, it's I want to say it's not In Love in Bloom, but it's something similar to that.
Okay. I don't know, not sure.
And then I want to say it's part of the Stranger Things series. It's not Stranger Things. It's something else. I can't.
I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. But it does some things better than that. In like that game also does a lot of like set pieces in like rooms or like constrained scenes where you're kind of like walking around, like doing this Bloom and Rage. Yes. Doing, discovery and exploration, right, in a very small space. But the one thing that DBQ and I talked about, right, that is not executed well in that is like right off the bat, like the first scene in that game, it has you looking for like a blockbuster, I think VHS tape to return. And like in like the tchotchke that you're searching for in the room, like, it doesn't stand out, right? So depending, like some people will find it like within 10 seconds of looking around. Other people will spend like a ridiculous amount of time, right, searching through the room to try and find the thing. This game, like one of the design elements it does is it kind of does some things to tell you what in the room is the important thing, right? And you still have to do some exploration because those things don't necessarily pop, right away. The first one generally does, but the rest of the ones, like you have to kind of like work your way around the room and find those things, and eventually they pop. But but they always, when there's something that's important that is not like the mundane, it does stand out. And so there are instances where this game does things that other similar to games, don't do as well. So again, I don't want to take everything away from the game, but I do want to say there's some very hyper specific social elements of the game that people I think are deliberately and kind of cagily like not speaking to, that might say that this game isn't like the thing that everybody says that it is.
Life is Strange, is that the series you're thinking of?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sorry. So the three basic setups of this are you're in a room, right? And you're kind of walking around interacting with little, objects that have like a white pip or something over them. And then there are what I would call interactive set pieces. So like, it's like you're transiting in the game, but you're not really in control. You're not controlling the character, but you're controlling like kind of quick time event kind of interactions, in the scene. And those could be, and I should say there's 4. Then there are some like camera and camcorder scenes where you're kind of going around taking pictures or taking videos and interacting. And then at that point you are in control of the character. And then the 4th one is the one that you're actually talking about. There are kind of what I would deem action sequences, right? So there are the downhill skateboard scenes. There are some chase scenes, right, on skateboards. There are some chase scenes on, I'll just call it, other moving objects, to not spoil or give anything away. And then there's like, there are some traversal scenes, where you're not necessarily like being attacked or being chased or anything, but it's just like a unique kind of traversal presentation. And then there's 1 or 2 like running scenes, which again have kind of, timed, not quite quick time events, but there are timed sequences that you need to hit. So there are those moments where where you're in motion, right? And you need to do some things that you're kind of platforming, or I will say there's like a softball scene which has like a mechanic where you don't just automatically hit the softball, right? You have to actually use the controller to try to hit the softball. So it's kind of a softball mini game, and that was actually pretty neat. I was playing that and I was like, they should actually take this piece and make like an indie baseball game, So yeah, but it's one more in the record books, and it was a fun experience, for a certain extent. I will say if you couldn't grok with the music of the game, then there are other things that you will find. Again, I won't say relatable. I'll say that you will find like immersive and accessible and engaging, right, from an entertainment perspective. Tal, I think you're muted.
Sorry. I was looking at the developer and I can't see. It's Beethoven Dinosaur, but is this their first game they've done? Can't really.
We'll have to ask that at DBQ when he gets back.
Yeah.
He's the indie game studio historian. I'm not sure. I think they've done one other one that was fairly popular, or I guess was well known in indie circles.
Yeah, I was just looking at like Wikipedia real quick, but it doesn't have a link for them, so I'll have to check it out later. All right.
I think the big thing I keyed on it is this is an Annapurna published game, right? So it's again, it's a thing that and Rami Ishmael has talked about how the publishers that are doing well in this time of like contention and like industry contraction for some are the publishers that have like a character, right? Like Devolver Digital and Annapurna, like the ones who purchase a certain type of game and they stick with that game and they don't really get way outside their box. And they kind of have a house style right around the types of games that they publish. And so this is definitely, this is, you could tell in certain ways, this is definitely like an Annapurna, kind of game.
All right, let's jump into our next segment. main news headlines. Like I said, unfortunately, I didn't have anything new this past week. I was planning on picking up Token, that Marvel fighting game, but I just didn't get a chance to. Too busy. So maybe in the next few weeks, we'll see. So let's jump in the main news headlines. Game Logic, you got the first one about some Ghost Recon news.
Yeah, this news story over on Game Informer by Marcus Stewart. Ghost Recon 25th anniversary video reveals free Wildlands story and gameplay updates, confirmation of new game. Ubisoft held a special live stream dedicated to Ghost Recon to mark the franchise's 25th anniversary. The bulk of the presentation centered on a substantial free update coming to Ghost Recon Wildlands today. But the publisher announced plenty of other goodies for fans, including confirmation of the next Ghost Recon title. Ghost Recon Wildlands, released in 2017, is getting a free story update today called Last Rites. The narrative centers on a mysterious masked antagonist named La Llorona, who seeks revenge against Bolivia's cartels, the CIA, and Unidad for wrongs committed against her. Players will battle La Llorona's cultists, Los Penitentes, to reach her in missions that feature challenging terrain, low visibility, and limited support. So it's weird to me I do not know whether Wildlands came before Breakpoint. I thought Breakpoint came after. So I feel like this is like the older Ghost Recon game, but I might be incorrect.
No, you're correct. Yeah, Breakpoint was after Wildlands. So
it's weird that they updated Wildlands, not Breakpoint. I'm not sure what the reason was for that.
I think in general, I think Wildlands was the more likable game of not just like the general public, but even like the reviewers and stuff like that. So but I never played Breakpoint, so I don't know what the reason was for that kind of, I don't want to say hate, but people just didn't like it, I guess.
Yeah, I don't disagree, but I don't feel like Breakpoint. I don't feel like the preference for Breakpoint was like head and shoulders above, or the preference for Wildlands was like head and shoulders above Breakpoint. You know,
yeah.
I think the problem with Breakpoint is it arrived. I can't remember what date it arrived. I want to say it came out the same year as the Division 2, maybe. But I think the problem with Breakpoint is by the time Breakpoint comes along, there's just so many other Ubisoft games that do very similar things. There's pieces of it that are very, very super similar to Far Cry after Far Cry 5 had done them, and things that are very similar to what the Division 2 does, I think. And so I remember I was part of like the alpha and the beta testing on that game, and I really liked it. But I was like, after, having Far Cry 5, and I want to say, and I think the Division 2, I was like, I don't know that I need to play like this one. This is like more, I hate to say it, but more of the same.
Yeah, it was fall of 2019 that Breakpoint came out. So
okay, yeah. So yeah. So I don't know if maybe the Division 2. I can't remember when the Division 2 came out, but they were all fairly close, I want to say.
Division 2 was earlier that year in March.
Okay. Yeah. So that was it. Yeah. I was already playing the Division.
Yeah.
I was already playing the Division 2, and I was like, I don't know that I need to play this. Yeah. But in retrospect, it's one of those games that I did loop back and buy on an Ubisoft sale, and I love the game, right? Now that it's had that distance to breathe, right, from those other games. Lastly, Ubisoft briefly confirmed that the next Ghost Recon game is in development. For the past few years, we've been building the next chapter of Ghost Recon, says Ghost Recon Live producer Irina Gabriela Popa. I'm really excited to share with you now we're ready to put it to the test, because we want to deliver a fun, fresh experience that stays true to everything that defines Ghost Recon: tactical action, large-scale operations, credible military storytelling, and, of course, the Ghost Unit. To help shape the game, Ubisoft is launching an insider program that grants early access to the game's closed test and allows users to provide feedback and receive development updates. So that is similar. That's the same program that I joined to play the Ghost Recon Breakpoint before the lead up to release. And so I believe I interpret from her language that those play tests could be this year, which means this game might be dropping in 2027. And I think, at the end of the day, I think this is the important thing about like the Ghost Recon franchise, and really kind of all the Ubisoft franchises that are of similar ilk, right? So Far Cry, Ghost Recon, The Division, just don't release them in the same year, right? Peanut butter them out, spread them out, because they have a lot of similarities, but they're different. right? But they don't need to be like on top of each other within like 6 months of release of each other. I don't think. I don't know, Tao. Any thoughts?
Oh yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah, I played Wildlands. I never did get a chance to play Breakpoint. Maybe one day, but I know the big thing with Breakpoint when it was first being released was I forgot his name now. The Punisher from the MCU. He was in it. And, he was always doing these big presentation on it and kind of hyping it up. So, but yeah, there might have been some technical issues possibly too when it first came out. Might have been the other reason that people kind of poo-pooed it, originally. But it looked, like I said, it kind of looked like the same, like more the same, I should say, not the same, but more the same Wildlands, and then more the same of kind of their other games. So, unfortunately, just had a rough time coming out. But it's cool that we get some news, I guess if you want to call it, on the next Ghost Recon, and yeah, hopefully by next year we get some cool stuff coming out for that. All right, let's jump into our next news story, and there was a Fire Emblem direct for the new game this past week. Fortune's Weave is the next game coming out for the Fire Emblem, which comes out this year, September 17th for the Switch 2. So they did about I'm sorry, you gonna say something?
Yeah, no, I didn't want to interrupt your vibe too much, but I just wanted to give a shout out to Morgan Kimes coming through the chat. Right. So I appreciate you, Morgan, of the Otter Players podcast, Otter Game podcast. So I've been on a few shows with her. So thanks so much for coming through.
Thanks. Yeah, so they did about a 20-minute gameplay deep dive into the new game. I know I never really was a Fire Emblem fan just because of the fact that it's a turn-based game, but I know you, Mr. Game Logic, you played Three Houses, I believe. I'm not sure if you played that second one that came out. I can't remember what the name of it was.
Yeah, I forget the name right off the top of my head too. But yeah, the second game that was much more kind of like I love the way DBQ frames it, and he's like, if the 3DS was still around, like this would have been the 3DS Fire Emblem. But I enjoyed both Fire Emblem Engage. Oh my gosh, former co-host, not former co-host, but co-host Swissguard in the chat as well. So it's a really interesting night of personalities coming through the chat. Yes, I like Three Houses more too, but I didn't find Engage like worthless, right? Like I liked Engage for being what Engage was. I felt like when Engage dropped, there was a lot of comparisons to Three Houses, and that's why, like I said, I like the way DBQ framed it. He was like, I think the realization is, if the 3DS was around, this would have been the 3DS one, and then there wouldn't have been so many direct comparisons. But now that it's all like Switch, people compare the two, but in reality, right, there's still like two different kind of branches of the IP. So
was the story kind of structure different? Because I know in Three Houses, like obviously you had three houses, and you kind of had that school that you were going through, and you can I guess walk around the school and do, like, I don't know about romances, but you could do like friendships and stuff like that. And I don't know, was Engage more kind of just like straightforward, here's a story, just go through it kind of a thing?
It was just overall a little less than, I would say, like in terms of the complexity of that like relationship. But like there were still relationships, there was and again, I haven't played in a while, and so I don't remember all the structures as well. There's been a lot of games in between then, but there was there were like these spirits that you could transform into, and like you could assign them to different heroes in your party, and so they would gain affinity with those spirits, right, and enable like progression of their power set. And so sometimes it was better to like leave one assigned with one particular hero, right, to let that affinity, that bond increase and beget additional powers. But that was not as complex an emotional tapestry as the whole like relationship. And it was also, from a networking perspective, like it was multifaceted, right? In Fire Emblem Three Houses, because there were relationships you had with students there, and then there were relationships that those students had, with other students and with other teachers and stuff, and like other members like throughout the army. So it was a slightly more complex kind of societal dynamic in Three Houses. And Three Houses definitely, I think another part of the reason that Three Houses hit the zeitgeist is Three Houses was very, very Potter-like, in terms of, I don't know why. Did I? Yeah, I don't know why you dropped off the stage, Tal. I hope I didn't. Maybe I mishit a button or something.
No, it was me. I mishit the button.
Okay.
went out of the web browser there by mistake.
So yeah, but like I said, I liked Engage. It was just like a different type of game and a little more simple of a game, a little more, I don't know, like a enhanced chess than, all the complexities of Three Houses. But, now we have Ramon Terrell, a star of Arrow, the Berlanti superhero show, and other sci-fi and fantasy fare, and an author of a fantasy book series coming through the chat. We appreciate you as well, Ramon. Thanks so much for coming through. So what is Ramon? I'll just relay. So Fire Emblem is S tier. I can fully break down what went wrong with Three Houses and why longtime fans didn't like it. What went wrong with Three Houses or with Engage? Yeah, I didn't know that longtime fans had a problem with Three Houses. I liked Three Houses fine. So, sometimes you guys that are longtime fans of series, I understand what your grief might be, but but I think, but I might still like those games, or those games might still be popular with the mass market. Yeah, I'm not going back to Awakening.
You want to go that far back?
But I hear you. Sorry, so Todd, you want to go through this one?
Yeah. So Fortune's Weave, I got a little bit of a tangent there. So as previously detailed, you got 4 playable characters that you'll be able to switch at any time throughout the story. Now I don't know in previous games if you're able to do that, but this one you'll be able to switch between characters at any time with progress for each one saved. So that's kind of cool that it's not just you're always going to be the one person, even though you might be switching between. Maybe the story might change a little bit or so, or at least there'll be like a different kind of a story there. However, the twist is that this era is actually set in the past, and they kind of go through. I guess they have it in the article here. So, true plot is set 5 years in the future, where the world has been destroyed by a returning demon god, Baelor. So basically, you go in the past to get these protagonists, up to speed and kind of help you out in the future. And like I said, this is all in the article, and this is all been explained in the direct. So I'm not like giving anything away, unless totally. Unfortunately, if you don't want to hear anything about it, just sorry. I didn't mean to spoil that. As usual, you got air combat involves choosing a team of units and place them on the field in a traditional Fire Emblem fashion. And they kind of just go through the different kind of units that you can have. Beginner, specialty, and advanced is basically, you got flying mounts and, people who can, archers and stuff like that. And then between matches, you have free time occurs. You can prepare for the future battles by training in the arena, by watching rival battles, gathering intel on them. There's shopping, so you can do, get new weapons and new enhancements and stuff like that. So seems like it's going to be pretty involved. I'm assuming you're looking forward to this Game Logic. I know you're a fan of the series, at least the last couple.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It sounds, and I didn't watch the direct. I meant to. It's kind of like as I was coming into the show, I was like, crap, I meant to watch that today. I was like, but I got obsessed playing Call of Duty. But this feels like it's a little closer to Three Houses, right in terms of depths of that social dynamic. But I'm not absolutely certain. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I know there are a lot of mutuals of mine who bought Switch 2 specifically because they saw the announcement of Fire Emblem. So, it'll be interesting to see it drop, particularly now when it's really kind of interesting how the 3 major platforms are unfolding, because it's interesting to see where the plays are in IP across, PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo, and how these drum beats are going to hit, right? With Xbox very much entrenching themselves and insisting that legacy IPs are the way to move forward. I mean legacy IPs that are still ground and tightly coupled, and I will use the term chained in their same design paradigm that that they've always had, with very, very, very super slight modifications. Modifications that, in my opinion, are kind of like super basic and super obvious. Like, of course you wouldn't put a first-person shooter out in 2026 that didn't have a slide mechanic in it. Well, like, what are you, insane? But let's also not like pat ourselves on the back for putting a slide mechanic in a first-person shooter in 2026. And then you look at Nintendo, which is, kind of doing what they've always done, which is like even though they're legacy IPs, every instance is an evolution, right, of a thing that they've done before. And as Nate is saying, it may not be what fans always want. And this is what, you look at the Mario franchise, or you look at the Zelda franchise, right? There are ones that are like peak, right? That, that kind of hit the drumbeat and heartstrings of everybody who are fans of that franchise. And then there are ones that only certain people are fans of. And, there are definitely ones like, what is it? Link's Awakening, right? The Zelda. And again, I'm not a Zelda expert, but Link's Awakening is the Zelda one that has like a graphical style that it's significantly different, right, from the other Zelda games or something like that. I don't know if I have that title correctly, but that at the time that it launched, like there have been Zelda games that at the time they launched, people were just not fans of at all. But 10, 15 years, like in retrospect, all of a sudden those things are like super popular. So it's very interesting, to see how they're evolving. And PlayStation has moved to a time where, it is not the PlayStation 3, post PlayStation 3, or like the early PlayStation 4 era, where it's kind of like the tentpoles were, Uncharted, Infamous, and some of their other, franchise IPs. Now we're in kind of the Spider-Man era. But there's definitely like a loosening of the anchoring, right, in some of those big colossal IPs, and God of War is back. So it's kind of reflective of like that time, but it's also different. And then there's a feeling that there are things that are missing, and it's like, how is PlayStation like going to plug those holes? And we're like, where the grip is kind of very tenuous from a creative perspective. So, it's interesting. It's an interesting time on the landscape. It's an interesting time when, Nintendo, right, for various other reasons, right, including, PR, is kind of holding a significant amount of sway, and where, because of the way the economy and prices are slipping and sliding around, you have this moment in time right now, and I don't know if it's going to continue, but you have this moment in time where arguably the cheapest way to get into gaming, right, is via the Nintendo Switch 2, right? So, how long, is that going to hold sway? Is that going to grab parts of the market that literally are at a point where they're priced out, right, of gaming? So it'll be interesting to see. Fire Emblem is arriving. Fortune's Weave is arriving at a very opportune time. An opportune time to potentially grab parts of a market that, if they're not in gaming now, their prospect is to get into gaming at the cost of, $80 for GTA 6 plus, $800, $650, whatever, for a high-end console. So it's going to be interesting to see how that dynamic plays out on the market.
Yeah. I've always liked I always appreciate like the animation style that they use, and just the graphic presentation, just because so the anime kind of look. But once again, it's the turn-based that kills me every time. It's just I can't do it. I know, at least not for too long, and then I just kind of get bored with it. But I'm always, if that's what you like, that's what you like. Like, I have no bones about it. Hero Down Under and Warwana, thanks for joining us here in the chat. Let's finish off the news. One more news article here. Speaking of GTA 6, got some news.
All right, this news story over on Game Rant by Joshua Duckworth. Take-Two releases new official statement on GTA 6 Online. As part of the recent earnings call, Take-Two Interactive CEO Strauss Zelnick has said a lot and a little about Grand Theft Auto 6, but in all of it is a sly, subtle remark regarding the expectations of GTA 6's online mode. Of course, it's worth mentioning that neither Rockstar nor Take-Two has publicly even acknowledged the online component, partially because the companies are entirely focused on the initial release of Grand Theft Auto 6 itself. Chances are, while GTA 6 Online may or may not be connected to the base game, the companies treat GTA 6 Online as a separate entity. Rockstar's statements that GTA 6 is a single-player game reflect that, while Vice City Online can manifest however the companies choose for it to, premium, free-to-play, etc. Still, it's clear expectations are sky high and well above and beyond the release of Grand Theft Auto 6. So yeah, this is the main head nod right in this direction. If you go to the GTA 6, ad copy and what it says on the website, it talks about it being the release of a single player game. This has led to a lot of ongoing speculation before these statements came out that they could do whatever they want to do with GTA 6, right? They could sell it as an entirely separate retail package. It could be a $30, $40, $50, $60, $70, $80, right? I don't want to throw it out there as like, oh yeah, it's got to be like this $30. No, it could be an $80 thing. Now, I think the one area of danger here is I do think they need to watch what they're going to do and how much they're going to charge, if they're going to charge it as a separate thing, if they don't tell people before this launches, which I don't think they're going to do, because I think there will be people who then don't buy the main game, right? The single player game, because there are a ton of people who only want to play the online mode. I think there are people who may want to dabble, or you have people who are like the Call of Duty crowd who, some of them play the single player campaign as the warm up. Some people get immediately in the multiplayer and then swing back to play the single player campaign. There's all different colors in between on Call of Duty when it comes to that single player campaign. And I think you have similar demographics for GTA. I think what would really rub people the wrong way. And again, Rockstar is a company that, Take-Two and Rockstar with this property, they're kind of a company that I don't often articulate things in terms of rubbing the people the wrong way, because they're kind of the honey badger of the industry, right? Rub people the wrong way, who cares? Is that a joke? But I think it would rub people the wrong way if you release this game at $80, you don't say anything, and then you come out with a GTA 6 Online. There's a price point you can put that at where people who bought the $80 thing kind of shrug their shoulders and say, yeah, I'll pay the other, I don't know, whatever, $30, right, to get access to the online mode. But then, if you charge higher than that, you do get some people who feel like, number one, bait and switch. It's look, throughout the history of GTA, we have always gained access to online from buying the main package, right? You haven't ever had an additional ask. I think that plays differently if you tell people that up front, and so there's a realization so people can make a choice, versus if you announce it later. So now there's a limited amount of time right in the run up to the release of this thing. Again, I think you know, it's, I don't think it's an easy thing to say to people that, hey, you know, GTA 6 Online is going to be extra. But, you know, go ahead and buy, you know, unless it's something like there's a discount, right? Like, hey, if you bought the GTA 6 mainline package, it's like an extra $20 or something like that. But like, if you didn't, then it's a full like $60, $70, $80 game. You know, I don't, who knows? So, but it's interesting. And the truth of the matter too, may be they may not yet know themselves, or they may not have made the final decision on what it's going to look like, which is why they've been like, they're being cagey for a reason. They're being cagey either because they haven't made the final determination themselves, and maybe they want to see what sell through is rate of the, or something. I don't know. Either they haven't made the decision themselves, or the decision that they made is bad news, right? And so they're deliberately not saying it out loud. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. I don't want to.
Yeah, I was just looking through some of the comments here real quick.
Yeah, I'm trying to pull back from the piece of me that wants to say, well, you know, you guys who have been salivating over this game, but you drove the demand signal right to this point, right to where they feel like they can charge for the online piece. So I don't quite want to say that, you know, but I do want to say, like, the reason they're thinking they can charge potentially for the online mode is because people have been salivating over this game, right, with an incredibly high demand. So I'm holding back from saying that, and I guess the thing that I'll say in place of that is, like, I'll be interested to see how this plays out, because I could care less, because I'm not buying GTA 6, so, you know, and I'm not playing the online component. So for those of you who have to participate in this with your pockets and your wallets, I'll be interested to see how this plays out.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's always been the kind of like the multiplayer. I mean, the single player. I mean, eventually I'll probably get it. I won't get it right away. I might even wait just until it comes, you know, to PC, which is probably like a year or two away. But yeah, it's just going to be interesting what the final verdict is on the online portion. I think obviously 5 had online, but 4, I think 4 didn't had online, but I don't think it was like as expansive as what 5 had, like a true open world where you can, like, you know, do stuff with other people. If I remember correctly, it's been a long time since I played 4, so and what that component was, but you're right. You know, the last couple of games did have it, you know, already in there. So, and even though I think it was a few months later, when after single player story for 5 came out, and when they released online. So, and, you know, even with all the trials and tribulations of that release and just everything they've done with that, you know, I mean, it's obviously selling like it's been, people have been playing like gangbusters, and, you know, buying the what do they call it, shark cards, I think it is. It's basically like the in-game money that you can get, you know, for the game. Yeah, it'll be interesting. I can totally see them though just selling it, you know, used. So I think some people, and even in the article said 2030. I can see higher than that for just the online component. So plus on top of that, you know, once again doing the shark cards or whatever the equivalent is for, you know, the Vice City Online, as they're calling it now, I guess, or for now, I should say, until we know what it's called. But yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting once this gets released.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, the way they could tiptoe around it, and you know, the thing they could do is they could make it free to play, but have either battle passes or, like, I don't know exactly how it's structured now, but they could have for pay to get access to certain content. Like, they could have, I know that they periodically drop like new heists, right, or new, like, you know, the equivalent of like campaign, like adventures, you know, which if they were parts of the single player, we would call them DLC. They could require you to pay for access to that, or to buy some type of pass to have access to, like, you know, certain ones of them. So you can get into the game for free, or you can get into the game based on having bought the single player game, but then to get access to certain content, maybe you have to buy like the equivalent of season passes or like the Destiny 2, like, access to the Witch King or whatever. And they could play with like making certain ones of those even free, right? But then that would give them a way to monetize the online piece of it without making it kind of as blatant and egregious as just saying it's a completely separate thing that's for pay. And you can't even get in or create an account until, right, you pay that upfront money.
Yep, definitely. All right. Unless you have anything else on any of these news stories, we'll jump into our last segment, our round robin gamer experience cleanup. I got a couple of games here, actually a few games here. The first couple, though, I jumped back into Tetris 99 on the Nintendo Switch 2. So if you don't know what that is, that's the Battle Royal Tetris, which is kind of weird to say every time I say that. So you're up there with 99 other people. You each have your own individual, Tetris game that you're playing, and as you're clearing out your rows, you're kind of sending not the whole row, but at least a few blocks over to another person's game. So it kind of builds up their side a little bit faster than normal. So there's a special event going on. I think it's just for this weekend. I think it's over after today. Where you get a Splatoon Raiders theme and a little icon, that just for the game itself that you can use. So I was just like, I'll jump in and do a few rounds. It actually didn't really take me too long. The first few games were kind of rough because it had been a while, and I just found out that you can kind of like save one of the pieces, as it's going down. You can actually save it off to the side and like swap it out later on. So that helps tremendously, which I didn't realize until, just this past weekend. So I've been doing that, playing that. And I think I did like maybe half a dozen, maybe 8 games, and I was able to unlock everything. So it was actually pretty quick. I was kind of surprised. So I'm playing that, and then I jump back into Fortnite, which I haven't really played all that much since like beginning of spring, maybe of this year. Maybe like a game here or two, a game or two here or there. But I've been playing quite a bit this past few weeks or past few days. Just jumped back into it. I don't do the Fortnite crew anymore. I kind of stopped that, so I'm just playing to play. I'm not worried about the battle pass and all that. There's still free tiers, so obviously I still unlock some stuff here and there, but I think I'm kind of over all that now. Finally, I'm just playing the game to play the game. So, and it's fun. I've always enjoyed just the gameplay itself. I'll say it. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I do really like how they do change stuff out. Every couple, 2 or 3 seasons, not just the guns and stuff, but the island changes, and there's different events throughout the game itself where they bring in special abilities or special weapons and stuff like that. So they actually got because of Brand New Day, Spider-Man Brand New Day, they have the web shooters back in there, which is like probably one of my favorite accessories in the game. I know a lot of people say that's like the swinging mechanic in Fortnite is like better than some of the actual Spider-Man games, which I can't say about the modern ones because I haven't played the modern ones, but I know obviously some of the older ones it does play a lot better when you're swinging around with those things within the game. So just having a good time playing that on the Switch 2 mostly. I think I played a few games here and there on the Xbox 2, on the Xbox X Series X also, but mostly on the Switch 2. Game Logic, you got an Xbox game, speaking of Xbox, that you've been playing.
Yeah. So Ride 6 is a game that I meant to get into earlier this year, and I kind of let it go by. But I did swing back around and grab it this weekend, playing it on the Xbox Series X. I've been a person who's played, obviously I play a ton of racing games, but motorcycles games have also been kind of one of my passions, not as much as some of the other more car sim type stuff, but way back in the early 2000s when EA did World Superbike, that was a thing that I got interested in. I have played some of the MotoGP series that has not been I've not been as much a fan of those games as I was of the old World Superbike series, but Ride 6 is kind of a little more like, I want to say, to me, it's kind of like the crew of motorcycle racing. But it actually probably hones a little bit closer to, MotoGP and maybe what World Superbike was even than the crew does. But at any rate, I just barely got into it. Like I said, it does hold, even though it's a more casual racer as far as like the career window dressings around it, that stuff is very much very akin to like MotoGP. You go in and you configure your racer with, all the different sponsorships and stuff on your helmet and your riding suit and gloves and all that. They're all name branded and stuff. And then, you pick a bike. This one, the difference with this one is Ride 6 has you participating in various series, and so kind of the way it's constructed, I'm trying to think of a game. It's constructed, the career is kind of constructed a little bit like Project Cars in terms of like there are different series that you can hop around to, like, so there's enduro racing, there's like, street bike racing, and maybe there's a couple other kind of variants of different motorcycle racing you can do. And each of the bikes, handle differently. I think there's like 3 or 4 different kind of core career series. So it's a little like dirt kind of in that aspect. So I've had a pretty good time with what I've seen so far. Graphically, it performs fine on Xbox. It's one of those racing games that's a little bit like the WRC series that used to come out from KT Racing or Kyloton, where the best graphical fidelity is on track, and then like once you're off track, like the character models and all that kind of stuff look kind of goofy, which is fine. Like that's not really what the team invests their time in. But yeah, I've had a pretty good time with it. Racing. The racing scene on the racing landscape on consoles and PC is kind of a little weird now, where our biggest franchises have all kind of shriveled up and aren't really being given love by their publishers. The F1 series is kind of going into this weird cadence now where we're probably not going to get an F1 game every single year, even though there's a Formula One racing season every single year with a different schedule and a different agenda and different rules that drive, different cars that have to be produced, but fine. And then, Test Drive Unlimited, which I forget, or I guess that's what KT Racing went to try and do when they lost the WRC license. That didn't turn out well. EA got the WRC license, and their EA WRC was absolutely horrible. They have since given up the license and now vacated the license, and now like no one has it. We've got no Need for Speed. We've got no Forza Motorsport. So a lot of the mainstream racing stuff, like it's kind of shriveled up and gone away. We have some kind of ancillary stuff in the sim racing space. And in fact, even Project Motorsport, I think which was a game that I was really looking forward to. I think Ramon was looking forward to it as well. It kind of landed with a thud. But apparently that team has been making a lot of progress, and people are actually really happy with it. It is kind of shaping up to look a little something more like the old Project Cars franchise, kind of brought back for everyone. Then, like I said, there's some ancillary sim racing stuff, like the Assetto Corsa franchise, which I think is doing pretty well. Then there's kind of some like deeper indie stuff that looks a little bit like the Art of Rally kind of game, where there are these top-down isometric racers. So we're living in an age where kind of the big AAA kind of stuff with all of like the windows dressing and stuff aren't around them. Although we do have, I can't remember what the name of the racing game is that we're getting next spring that is done by the former creative director of the Forza Horizon series who left Playground Studios. I think Mike Calhoun is his name, and the name of the game that he just showed at Summer Game Fest escapes me, but that's kind of a big game. That game is coming to Game Pass, I think, day one. So that's probably the closest thing to like a mainstream racing game that we're getting. But in the meantime, like I said, motorcycle racing has always kind of been like an aside that the industry has treated. Ride has obviously done well. It's on the 6th iteration, right? So it's done well enough to keep getting greenlit. And it is kind of become a mainstream staple series in the motorcycle racing scene. Although, like I said, I don't think it gets like it doesn't have like the stories type stuff that like Grid Legends did, or like Formula One even does now, or some of the other racing games. The Crew Motorfest kind of has this like faux story running underneath it. So I don't really know what attracts people to the community so well. And the racing is, it's okay. Now, admittedly, I'm also playing in the arcade racing mode right now because I just came to the series. This is the first Ride game I've ever played. I am playing in the arcade mode, and so maybe there is a professional or an expert mode, and so maybe that offers a little more meat for people. So I'm not sure. Yeah, Ramon, I'm not sure where you're saying that Ride 6 hasn't been received well. It got pretty decent review marks, so I'm not sure if maybe that's on PC and Steam community reviews. But yeah, so I've been taking that for a spin so far.
Nice. Yeah, I see mostly positive reviews right now, at least on Steam, but could be general consensus. Maybe it hasn't been received too well. Yeah, looking at that developer too, that looks like that's kind of their pedigree is racing games. like they've done a whole lot of racing games. Even like I think they worked on the Hot Wheels Unleashed, I believe, series. So
yeah, I think Milestone also. I thought Milestone also does the so they do. Yeah, Milestone does the MotoGP series as well. So again, you could see a lot of those similarities too. So Ride 6 is just the Ride franchise is kind of a franchise that allows them to model different bikes, right? MotoGP, like those bikes are almost, I'll probably be going a little too far to say that they're all the same. But yeah, they're pretty, like MotoGP bikes are very, 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 very similar. There's a little homologation there, but not quite as much because they're not as much as there was in the World Superbike series, because those were actually bikes. Like the motorcycles that I rode were actually the bikes that, were ridden in World Superbike. And then they had to, if you're not familiar with homologation rules are racing series where they say the cars that are raced in the series have to be sold right on the commercial market, right? That's like if you sell like I think NASCAR is like that, because like all the NASCAR cars are like real cars, right? They're just obviously not tuned the way they are in NASCAR. So then you take like the base model of the car that you sell commercially, and then you soup it up. But yeah, the reviews on Steam right now, Ramon, are all reviews right now are mixed at 67%. So that must have been when it first came out. It didn't. There's only like the reviews are only in the 500s, but recent reviews right now are 90%. So
yeah, I was about to make that correction. Yeah, I just looked at that too. So that's the last 21 reviews. So they've been very positive. So
yeah.
All right. They also made Monster Jam, or at least one of them. So I remember playing those back in the day. Those always come out fairly frequently. So it's the monster truck racing, and Sunday is the Monster Jams. All right, the last couple of games I have, once again, sports games, or I'll put sports games in quotes too for the last one, but I've been playing MLB The Show, and both of these are on the Switch too. MLB The Show 23, so that's from a few years ago. I don't know what it is, but I just can't get out AAA. I think I'm in AAA forever. I'm in the year 2032. 33, I think, actually now. I think I just finished the 32 season. And every time, like I always do like really well, like the second half of the season. As soon as I go into the next season, they put me into, the training, the practice games, actually on the sock squad. And I just do absolutely terrible. Like I can't hit anything. Like it's just, fielding is usually pretty good. But just like hitting is just like absolutely terrible. And I just can't do anything. I get like maybe one or two hits out of like you play a lot of those preseason games, and it's just like totally bad. Like I think I ended with like a 182 ERA, or batting average, not ERA. So I don't know. I'm assuming there's difficulty levels too, but I don't really want to like put it down because then obviously it's gonna be too easy and stuff like that. So I'm just trying to, I don't know, just trying to figure out what what to do. But I have a lot of fun with the game. I really enjoy playing it. So I'm gonna keep plugging away and see how far I can go into, and before I have to retire, I guess, if I can get into the pros there. And then the last game is Mario Strikers Battle League. Still playing that. Played a couple more cups and beat those. Like I said last week, there's no story. There is no story mode, I should say. Not really. There's no story mode, so you're just doing either quick matches. You do the cups, or you can battle online. So I haven't done any online battles yet. I don't know if I want to because it's a fairly old game, so I'm sure everybody knows all the tricks of the trade, and I'm just kind of starting to get back into it. But then other like just fun, like obviously arcadey soccer game because you have the special abilities from the Mario crew, fire, fire, ice, whatever, just tornadoes and stuff when you can do these special kicks. When there's like a kind of like a glowing orb that kind of drops onto the field every once in a while, and when you pick that up, you can do like a super kick, a super shot on goal. And there's like a little meter that pops up. I don't think I mentioned this last week. It kind of goes from right to left. You hit it, and then it goes back to the right, and you got to hit it within this little, status area. And if you get it like in the blue area, you get the superpower hit, and that's pretty much unblockable as far as I've seen. Any other time, if you like miss those blue marks, then it can be blocked and batted away or whatnot. But super fun. Yeah, I'm just having a fun time with Mario Strikers Battle League. So that is it for the round robin. Unless you had any other games. I think you had COD that you're going to mention also.
Yeah, I had some quick hits. I won't go into a ton of detail, but other stuff I've been playing. Call of Duty Black Ops 7. The malaise that I hit was and so it's obviously a divisive thing, right, in the community player base. This topic of SBMM, and Treyarch pulled it out, and now in season 5. What they had was they had playlists where like 5 of the modes were not SBMM, and then there was one mode that was a playlist of SBMM modes, and now that mode is out. Right now, that mode has been replaced by the Black Ops Classic mode, which does things like I think it doesn't even have slide in it. Like it pulls all the modern mechanics out of it and makes it like old school Black Ops, I guess, which is fine. I played it, I played that mode a couple times. I was like, yeah, nah, I'm not interested in this. But one thing I will say is look, if people are going to be upset, let them be upset. Like, I prefer SBMM. Like, if I'm going to play the game, I actually prefer sweaty matches, right, the whole time. Because the problem I have when it's not SBMM is that the oscillating seesaw of matches, to me, has just gotten to a point where it's like ridiculous, right? It's like you have a match where you ridiculously outmatch everyone, right? Just because you happen to wind up with like the right mix of people on your team. Then you have matches that maybe it's kind of in the middle. And I mean, I've had the number of matches I've had without SBMM that have been like really great, meaning like I come into the match, the team is down, right? And then we make a last minute comeback, or we win or we lose like 100-97, right? We like that perfect seesaw, right? What is a G? And I will say, this is the year that, to me, maybe it was going on before, but I didn't really see it. This is the year that, to me, I've actually seen people in a Call of Duty match actually type into the chat at the end of a match GG, which just like that community is so toxic. Like I didn't normally see that before. But what I completely fell off the stump about last week was that I was like, I'm getting a ton of matches where the team I'm on is just so overmatched that I'm halfway through the match, I'm like, I shouldn't even bother. Like, remember back in the day when we used to talk about Call of Duty and it was like, you would like spawn kill, right? You'd spawn, get killed, and that's when people would drop off. It was like that. I was like, I'm spawning on Nuketown and these dudes are all like in our backfield to the point where, and I just get to the point, like, I might as well just lay down in the prone position and just camp and like wait and hope I get, like, it just became totally, and again, that doesn't happen all the time, but the percentage of times that it happens just crept up into my threshold of like, Now I'm at a point where like if I feel like I play for an hour, 20 minutes of that is time wasted. Like I'm not having fun. And that's where it kind of hit me. It just got to the point where I'm like, and I'm doing this push to get the prestige 10. And I'm like, but there's a chunk of time I'm playing this game and it's not fun. The light bulb that came on and the switch that I made that is proving to be good is I switched to hardcore and ranked. Because the reality is ranked to a certain extent because of the way it's structured is kind of SBMM, right? But SBMM in terms of like real world stats, like you are getting matched with people that you have progressed the same equivalent amount in ranked. And it pulls players together in like a +1 -1 kind of range. So there's that. But the thing I love about hardcore is hardcore gets rid of all that movement kitty crap. Because the movement kitty crap is all about them getting a second or two ahead of you in TTK. It's all about getting you to fire and miss so that they can get ahead of you in the TTK tug of war, right? Because they're not accurate when they're doing all that movement kitty crap. But what they are doing is they're avoiding getting hit. And then like after they do that first couple like movement kitty rounds, then they can get ahead of you on TTK. What I love about hardcore is it cuts a great ton of that movement kitty crap out. And when I go back to like what was making me unhappy about playing the game and like not feeling like it was time well spent in the non-SBMM general, right, Gen Pop games, was that I was coming into matches and like literally you would go into a match and it was like a whole team of movement kitties. And I'm like, okay, this is what you don't get when you do have SBMM, right? Because those knuckleheads are over in a pool, right, of players playing by themselves. And I think, and that's what was making people pissed off at SBMM, is that all the movement kitties don't like being in sweaty matches. And what they want to do is they want to come in and they want to do all that crap and that BS, right, and have matches where they walk away with a 3.0 or a 4.0 KD. And I'm like, that's fine. I'm like, but that's not what makes the game popular. And so this whole thing about this rumor that they lost 300 million, a ton of that is being attributed to putting the game in Game Pass. I don't know that I believe that it's because it was put in Game Pass. I think a not insignificant amount of that is because they pulled SBMM out. And so I think a lot of people who used to play the game just for fun, who could actually have fun playing the game if they were mid-tier players, dropped off because they're going into these ridiculous matches, right, being matched up against an entire team of movement kitties. But like I said, switching to hardcore and switching to ranked has been beautiful. I have had, FFA games, I've had several matches of free-for-all that I've won over the last few weeks, that I've walked away with like a 33-11, right, KD, right, with a 3.0 KD. So I'm having a great time and it's brought the game back. And I feel better about continuing to push on to get the Prestige 10. So I have been playing that. I also went back to the Altars. I noticed it had DLC drop this year, which is kind of well regarded. So I wanted to go back and try and chew through that game and maybe come out on the other side and get the chance to play the DLC, and in a time when I'm a little more attentive and actually paying attention to that game, because that game has like a ton of systems and stuff that in do loops that kind of in a No Man's Sky manner, like you need to learn. So I've been having fun playing that, and then I've also been playing Fast Fusion on the Switch too, and now I get it. I've been it's a game that I kind of come back to, right, and play for an hour at a time, so I haven't deep dove into it, but now I get it. They're kind of intuitively knew this, but the whole fusion mechanic is because the game is wired so that the deeper you get into some of the championships, you can't win them without dorking around with the fusion mechanic. Because, I got to the point where I'd unlocked all of the vehicles, but all of the vehicles like top out at power rankings essentially that don't really allow you to to win some of the later races, right, in championships. So you do have to start like fusing the vehicles together to create like unique combinations of vehicles that come out of it. So I finally started playing around with that and now I'm getting like A+ rate level vehicles that are more competitive in those races. So that's pretty fun. Just kind of mix and match with that. I think there's a way that also, like, once you pair them together, and when you choose one hull, you can scroll between all the other hulls that you can match it with to see what is the best combination. So that's pretty dope. I think once you mess with it too, you can also back that out, because the whole time, like, you keep, like, after I'd unlocked the vehicles, you keep earning cash. I'm like, why am I still earning cash? Like, what is the point of the money? And then I unlocked all the tracks, and I was like, I'm still earning money. But it's so that you can, because you pay in-game currency to fuse vehicles, and you pay in-game currency, I think, to defuse vehicles. So I've gotten into that part of the mechanic as well. And it's being turning out to be pretty interesting.
Nice. That one came out originally for the Switch too, right? Fast Fusion.
Yes, that's it was Fast RMX for the original Switch, and then Fast Fusion for the Switch 2.
Okay. Nice. All right, let's jump into actually that's the end of the episode, but we're gonna jump into releases for this coming week. We had a couple here. First up, on August 11th, we have The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remastered coming out for the Switch 2. And then on August 13th, Madden NFL 27 coming out for PlayStation 5 and then Xbox Series. So anything you'll be picking up here this week out of these two, or anything else?
So I pulled that off the I'm pulling, most of the weeks. I used to kind of like randomly pick what release list I was going to pull them, and then I would cross-reference a couple to make sure that but now I just use the Game Informer list. Is Madden 27 is coming out for PC, right?
That's what I was wondering, because I thought it did last year. It might be coming off of PC too, I'm assuming. Take a quick check here. And I think I thought it was coming out for Switch too, also. Now that I think about it.
Yeah. Yeah, because 26 is on Switch, right?
Yeah. 27. Oops.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So it's coming on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, Nintendo Switch 2. Then it comes out directly through the EA app on Steam and the Epic Game Store. So that's another thing I mentioned. I did. I'm always proud of myself when I buy an Ubisoft game directly from Ubisoft and not through Steam or Epic. So I can do my part to contribute directly to Ubisoft's hopeful return to health and well-being. So yeah,
nice. All right. So that is it for episode number 444. Anything else, Game Logic, you want to pull from the comments or comment on, just in general?
No. I think that's it. Thanks so much for everybody who came through. It was a really rousing crowd. Real Innate Warwana, Ramon Terrell, Swiss Guard came through, Morgan Kimes. Did I say Ramon? I think I said Ramon. Hero Down Under. So really great for everybody who came through.
Yeah, thanks everybody for joining us. Next week, Mr. DBQ Ham should be back, and he will be the primary host with myself and Game Logic as co-pilots. Game Logic, thank you for joining me for tonight. Everybody in the chat, thank you for joining us. Always a pleasure to have everybody, especially bouncing back and forth between the comments. Please check out our episode next week. Should be around 8 o'clock Eastern on Sunday. Take care of yourselves out there. Play those games, and we will see you next week.